been innumerable. One passage of Scripture found in the book of Children in the Lord. For this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. Ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring. And I thank God that I was born into a Christian home. I thank God for Mom and Dad who brought us up in the nurture.
It was crowded. It was just one little door going in, and it was quite the experience. What I remember about the church on South Main, or I attended about 3 times. I believe it was in the 900 block of South Main on the east side. It was a very crowded building. Just had a simple door to come in off the sidewalk, and seemed like an awful lot of people in a little building. It wasn't anything fancy. The floors was concrete. They were cleaned the best they could be, but it had been an automotive garage.
In September 18th of 1949, the church was chartered with about 19 members signing the charter.
And before they knew it, they just filled it up and somehow scraped some money together to buy some lots here at 12th and Madison, and just first of all put up a tent, and
they went 100 to 200 to 300, and that's when they decided we've got to do something. We've got to build. They were setting up folding chairs and whatnot, in the aisles, and of course, the fire department didn't like that. And Lonnie was he was a wheeler dealer. They needed some money to help get the money to do their first edition, and they were able to borrow the money from a guy by the name of Gano. He had a grain company, and one of the guys that Lonnie knew, they went and visited him, and he lent them $20,000. And they floated some church bonds then to pay for that.
And then down through the years, the church would build a building and kind of fill it up. And in the early days, they had 3 quick building programs, and they just would fill it back up. And then in the 70s, they just kept buying more lots. There was no denomination behind us, and there was no big mother church somewhere to pour a lot of money. So it was just a guy and his family. And he just started grabbing some people that were floating around. They were kind of church orphans. And he just said, let's pray about starting a church.
The founding pastor of Westside Baptist Church was Lonnie Smith, and that was my uncle. He was married to Viola Day, who was my daddy's sister.
Lonnie Smith was a true soul winner. Lonnie's main thrust was to get people saved.
He was just a super special guy. He was a lot of fun. He interacted with the youth very well.
He just had a heart for teenagers. And so down through the years, through the 75-year history of this church, thousands and thousands of children have come through the ministry of this church. We've always made it a priority. We take kids to camp. We have special Wednesday night ministries for them. And the best that we can, we try to have our student population has someone that kind of works with them, prays for them, befriends them, preaches to them, teaches them. We've had this church has always had a wonderful children's ministry. And then people just gave of their time and effort to teach and minister to children. And for years we had a gentleman here, Gary Ridge, who just did marvelous work for us. I mentioned Chase Hill. He's a pastor in Wichita. He was our youth pastor for some time. Chris Powell, who's now pastor in Haven, was our youth pastor for some time. And it just seems that God's used these men and others like them to impact teenagers. I think one of the unique blessings that this church has seen, and it goes all the way back to the founding pastor, Lonnie Smith, is that young people would grow up in this church and then feel a call of God to minister somewhere. And sometimes that would be on the mission field, and sometimes that would be in neighboring churches here in the community or here in Kansas. And that has continued down through the years in some form or fashion. It's just been a glorious thing.
We have probably over 100 missionary programs that we support. And we've given over $8 million from this church in missions through the years. So Westside is known across this country as a great missionary-minded church. And we've been part of that in the giving since 1976.
One thing Uncle Lonnie brought to our church was Faith Promise Mission giving. And oh my goodness, how exciting of a time that was for our church. Once a year, we would all stay after service on Sunday morning, and they would pass out little papers to us. We would write down what we would promise to pay to missions, or to give, I should say, to give to missions for that following year. And then Uncle Lonnie and I think the deacons, I can't really remember, but they'd be up on the platform with a big calculator, and they would be adding up the promises, the money coming in that would be coming in, and the more promises came in, the longer the tape would get on the calculator. And that was just such a joyous time. We just loved it. It was just an exciting time. And then throughout the year, we'd get updates as to where we were on our mission giving, and that was just so inspiring. And Uncle Lonnie just had a vision for that. He had a vision for Hutchinson, Kansas, for souls, not for numbers, but for souls. And I think that he had it not only for here, but for the missions plan, that God set forth.
We have several missionaries. In fact, I think at last count, maybe as many as 10, that are out of this church, that are serving God somewhere in the world, and they all have the same connecting point of Westside Baptist Church.